Sunday will mark the fourth playoff meeting between the Packers and Seahawks. The first was the famous "we want the ball and we're going to score" 2003 wildcard game. Matt Hasselbeck got the ball. The Packers scored on Al Harris's pick six to win that game. In the 2007 divisional round, Ryan Grant and the Packers ran over Seattle in the snow at Lambeau. And of course, the 2014 NFC title game. Do we really need to say anything more about that one? Yeah, I didn't think so.
Matt LaFleur is the first head coach in Packers history to have the most home wins in his first season, break the franchise record for most wins by a rookie head coach, and lead the Packers to 13 wins, an NFC North title, and make the playoffs. So we asked LaFleur, just how was he able to get his players in this position?
I don't know. I can't sit up here and talk about that. You're going to have to ask those guys.
And that's exactly what we did.
He's done a phenomenal job this year. I'm not sure too many people thought we'd be in this position, and that's fine. Everyone has an opinion. That's great. But, you know, he's brought a great culture change to the locker room, and guys have really bought into it and are enjoying this.
The best teams are player-led teams, and I think he's allowed the players to take ownership of important parts of the squad, and the biggest thing is the leadership part, letting guys kind of be themselves. You know, it was from the start, it was a limited amount of rules and very simplistic approach.
But what stands out in how LaFleur runs his operation that has pushed the players to be better?
Just his attention to detail. Like I said before, I think that sometimes it's a pain in all of our butts. You know, when we watch a film, sometimes it's a little nitpicky, and you know, I'm not afraid to say that it's definitely reflected great in the way we play.
The NFL is big business, and the playoffs mean even bigger money for players. This year, each player in the NFC divisional round will make $31,000, win or lose. That's more than double what Brett Favre and the eventual Super Bowl 31 Packers made in 1996. Now, the Packers' first divisional round payout came in 1941, players making 1/10 of their salary, which on average was $1,700 a year, so $170, or with inflation, $3,101.09. Our Dave Schrader goes one-on-one with Jones to talk about his ascendant season.
When we chatted in Atlanta, you had not yet met Coach Matt LaFleur. He had been announced as the Packers coach, but you had seen his track record working with Derrick Henry, Todd Gurley, Devontae Freeman, and you were excited about your team's possibilities and your role within that offense. And you had a bold proclamation.
Miami next year, we're going to be there.
Guaranteed?
Guaranteeing it.
What led to that confidence even before you had met Matt?
Just knowing the guys we have in this locker room, all the hard work we've been putting in, and we had said last year we went home with an ugly taste in our mouths, and we knew what we had to do. And I just have that feeling. We have the team here, we have the veterans, we have the leaders, and Coach LaFleur, he's a great coach, and I kind of already knew coming in how he used running backs, so that excited me as well.
The Packers defense tonight, they did very well in the first half. They got Russell Wilson a little bit in the second half, but without the big free agent acquisitions, they're probably in a world of hurt tonight. Zadarius Smith with 2 sacks in the first half, Preston Smith with 2 sacks in the game. The big one late to force a punt. The Packers never gave the ball back. They were huge, and I would imagine they were popular too.
They were very popular, and the Smiths actually said, hopefully they never have to play a quarterback like him again. And you know what they actually described Russell Wilson to? This little guy right here.
And our endurance got tested tonight.
Yeah.
We answered the test. We passed it. We did good.
What was the saying that you said? It was like chasing a chicken.
I was like chasing a chicken in the field with no fence.
All right, how about Jason Wildy-Damas here? Nostradamus on our show the other night. His pick to click, Jimmy Graham, all 3 catches. They went for 43 yards, and they all went for first downs. Devontae Adams was spectacular tonight, Rob. Where does this rank? I know statistically it's the best ever in playoff history, but this was a special night.
It was. I mean, and Philadelphia earlier in the year was a special night, except it ended in disaster with the turf toe injury. But this guy has games where he dominates, not unlike what we used to see from Jordy Nelson, what we used to see from Greg Jennings, what we used to see way back with Antonio Freeman. Those guys that's why you draft receivers high, because they can have the kind of production that Adams had tonight.
His route running is just ridiculous. ridiculously good, you guys.
It's his feet, going back to the story we did at the start of the year. His feet are amazing.
He said a little film study going this week, knew exactly how he was going to set up some of those defensive backs, and he just carried it out with precision. Fantastic night.
Look, the most important thing we heard tonight, and I don't want to use my what did you hear, but Aaron Rodgers comparing his connection with Davante to what he had with Jordy. That is enormously high praise, and we saw moments throughout the season where it wasn't quite there, right? Where they missed connections. Tonight, they connected every single time they needed to.
Everyone has been extolling the virtues of San Fran's defensive unit based on that performance against the Vikings, but to be honest, the Packers did the exact same against that Vikings team in late December. If you look at the two games, the Niners won 27-10 over Minnesota last week. The Packers won 23-10, overcoming 3 turnovers to do so on the road in Minnesota, no less. Both teams gave up an identical 7 first downs total. The Niners gave up, 147 total yards to Minnesota. The Packers gave up less. They gave up 139.
Rodgers mentioned it early in the week about how, hey, we're the underdogs, we should be nice and loose. I went to Brian Balaga yesterday and talked to him for a little bit at his locker about that, and he's one of the few guys that has been here for, the 4 NFC Championship games starting in 2010. And I said, is this a real thing? Like, are you guys loose? And he said, look, all I can tell you is that in 2016, we were out of gas. I mean, we had run out of gas after running the table.
Sure.
And they're in a much better place mentally and physically, Mark, than they were back then.
I'm going to take something from the coaches when we heard the coordinators the other day, and Nathaniel Hackett, it just stuck with me how we've got to play offensively, quick and clean. And I think if they take care of those two things, they're going to have a fighting chance.
This year's NFL draft will no doubt be different. No fans, no prospects, and no hugs for Commissioner Roger Goodell, who will announce the picks from his home in Bronxville, New York. Instead of going to Vegas for the first time, which would have been the 11th city to host the draft, it instead returns to New York for the 58th time. Early in its infancy, owners all went to a hotel and made their draft selections off a big board or a chalkboard with 90 prospects listed on it. The draft has been held in Wisconsin. The Schrader Hotel, now the Hilton Milwaukee City Center, hosted the 1940 NFL Draft in December. The draft has been on the road since 2015, and now it makes history by going virtual.
We're going to evaluate them all, not only, even though there may be guys that may be unrealistic to think that they're coming to Green Bay, they're going to be in the NFL, and you never know when that opportunity might come, so you want to know as much as you can about them.
Did you really think he'd come right out and say the Packers will draft Aaron Rodgers' successor? What Brian Gutekunst will do is his due diligence, in case he sees a potential successor fall into his lap. Does that sound familiar? By now, you're well aware that Aaron Rodgers, at age 36, is older than Brett Favre was when Rodgers fell into the Packers' lap in 2005. Favre was 6 months shy of his 36th birthday. Rodgers said in a radio interview earlier this offseason that he wouldn't have a problem if the Packers do bring in a quarterback. But should they? And should they start thinking about grooming someone to replace Rodgers, even though he still has 4 years left on that mega contract extension he signed less than 2 years ago? The high cost of doing business then, $103 million guaranteed. That might become too high of a cost soon. The salary cap hits on that massive contract jump dramatically after this season, from just over $21.5 million this year to over $36 million in 2021 and almost $40 million in 2022. And that's the first year where the Packers can get out of the deal with palatable pain.
I fell to 24. They traded up and drafted Jordan. So, I see the parallels based on age for sure. And I think it was important for me to go through that experience to understand really what he's going through and what he's going to be thinking when we go through a season together. I know what he was thinking. I know what he was going through, and it's the last thing you want is to deal with any negativity around realizing a childhood dream. So I just told him, congrats, man. I understand what you're going through, man. It's super exciting. I'm excited to work with you, which I am. And I understand it's a business. I understand the nature of the business, and not here abdicating my spot by any means. That's not going to happen.
But Rodgers admits what he thinks will happen is that Love's presence will force the two-time MVP to leave Green Bay before he's ready to leave the game.
Just look at the facts. They traded up, they drafted him. I would say they like him. They want to play him. It's a different environment. You know, in 2005, my first year we were 4-12. Second year we were 8-8. There wasn't a clamoring, you know, to play me because it was normal for young guys to sit. You know, in the third year, 07, we go 13-3. We're, you know, one play, we're overtime in the NFC Championship, playing at home against the Giants from going to the Super Bowl. Different scenario. You know, now I think quarterbacks are playing earlier. It gives, you know, some latitude for young coaches and GMs to, you know, to play their guys. And I get it. I really do. Like, I don't harbor any ill will about it. Like, was I bummed out? Of course. Who wouldn't be? You know, like, I wanted to play my entire career in Green Bay. I love the city. I grew up there. Really, got there when I was 21. I'm 36 now. You know, a lot changes during that time. But look, I get it. I see it completely clearly, and I'm not bitter about it.
No Green Bay grown quarterback has been drafted since Bud Keys in 1988. However, former Ashwaubenon Jaguar James Morgan could change that this week. He played his high school football less than a mile from Lambeau Field and should soon be playing inside NFL stadiums, fighting for a professional job.
You know, we were green and gold at Ashwaubenon, so it's kind of like just pictured like, you know, Packers growing up and all that stuff. Really magical and just an awesome, you know, football town.
While Green Bay is now just one of 32 possible employers, the Packers captured Morgan's imagination growing up. His jersey number was a dead giveaway of his allegiance.
So I was 4 up until 8th grade, and then in high school I switched to 12. So I'll let you connect the dots with that one. You know, whatever team takes a chance on me, I'm extremely excited for. If it works out for the Packers, that would be a dream for me, obviously.
Morgan certainly flashed talent at Ashwaubenon, but had to work to get to this stage. He went to Bowling Green at first and then ended up transferring to Florida International. He's used to taking the long route to success and being overlooked.
I think there's an unfair stigmatism with high school football athletes in Green Bay and in Wisconsin in general, where it's like you're really under-recruited. And so my advice to somebody who, you know, may be an aspiring athlete in high school who's not getting all the attention, just keep working. You know, if you're unusual because of how hard you work, if you aren't hanging out with your friends and you get crap because of it, because you're, you know, doing your own thing and you're working hard, that's not a bad thing. That's the position that I was in, and I'm really happy that it paid off.
And he's ready to compete now, following in the footsteps of FRCC brethren Alec Ingold, now of the Raiders, and Max Sharping, now of the Texans, who have helped change the perception of Green Bay football.
And I'm really excited to, you know, maybe be considered part of that, you know, and changing that kind of stereotype that we don't get a lot of athletes. It's so cool, man. It's so cool seeing all those guys, you know, getting recognition in the NFL and all that stuff. And hopefully that can, you know, change for the better for Wisconsin athletes.
What's deemed normal in the NFL went out the window the second COVID-19 swept the world. And although training camp may have the same feel, the way of operating will be different, and that will take some getting used to.
Feels like training camp because I don't know what day it is.
Players are officially back in the building, but not without a mask and multiple negative COVID tests.
The whole layout of training camp is it's unprecedented. We've never gone to this approach before, but again, we're trying to make the best decisions possible for our football team and kind of, we just got to be fluid.
From plexiglass in the locker room to bigger meeting areas, the Packers are looking to make Lambeau the safest spot in town.
You know, you're getting tested, it's sanitizers everywhere, and, you know, it's just, you know, the mask, everything that we're doing, you know, they're serious about, you know, getting us ready to be able to play and keeping us healthy. You know, I feel safe here.
And quarterback Aaron Rodgers feels safe too, and opting out was never an option.
I was always going to play. I respect, you know, any person who decides to opt out. There's a lot of different circumstances around, I'm sure, each individual case.
Like receiver Davante Adams, who had to take his family into consideration.
I definitely weighed all the options and looked in everything, all the protocols and everything, and I have no problem with being a hermit, man. I mean, aside from the COVID and all that, like that takes it to a new level. Obviously, it makes you think 3 times rather than twice about whether or not you should go do whatever.
But what players do off the field in their spare time will be crucial to what happens on the field during season.
If we're going to have football play this year, it's going to take a lot of self-discipline and a lot of self-accountability, and it's not just our players. I mean, it starts with our staff. Really, anybody that comes in contact with our players, they have got to be very mindful of what they're doing outside of this building.